Doug,
Yo.
you ever feel like just something's out of place?
Quite often.
So just something's out of whack.
Pretty much constantly.
Are you talking about me right now? I'm listening. I'm here.
Oh shit! Hey Dan, what's going on, man? Yeah, it's
Hey,
just
buddy.
sometimes I just feel like there's got to be an adjustment.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean, Dan? How about
Yeah.
you? You feeling out of place?
Oh, I'm feeling something.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm feeling. I'll tell you what I'm feeling. I'm feeling fear.
Fear.
And the reason I've been dreading and putting off this particular topic since we started the show.
Oh my God, that's 187 episodes ago.
Yeah, exactly. Because there is a very real possibility that this segment will piss off more listeners than any segment we've done before. And I don't want that. I really don't. But here's the thing. We challenge woo. It's what we do. We research it. We read a bunch about it. We attempt to find the most reliable sources that we can. Sources who are much smarter and more scientific than we are.
Yes,
so we're not
please
just
see
talking out
the
of our
patrons
asses.
only segment of this show for just such a source. If you're not a patron and you remain, you want to be after this segment, you can listen to that.
That's right. So we go through all of those processes and then we make fart jokes about it. This is our job.
Yes.
The reason I'm so trepid about wading into these waters is that it's very likely that we have more listeners who currently utilize and believe in this woo than any other woo that we've ever done before. Hell, we know we have at least one person who makes their entire living off of it because they wrote in to tell us about it. So let me start by saying that this segment is not designed to make anyone feel stupid or foolish for participating in this woo.
Other than me.
Other than Uncle Mark.
Yes.
That is not the goal. We love you. That said, chiropractic is bullshit.
Oh, boy. Well,
Okay.
Bye.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe that's a little too strong a stance to take, and I'm actually going to walk that back some later on. But for now, that's the position. If you're mad, I understand. Keep listening, and if you're still pissed off at the end of the segment, I've set up a special email address that you can write into so Uncle Mark doesn't get overwhelmed monitoring our regular email.
There you go.
Because this isn't his fault. Remember,
Not yet.
This email is not for any other inquiries, just angry stuff about the segment. So if you want to get real mad at me about it, please email me at socialmedia@MikeLindellOfficial.com. That is a very real address, so please feel free to spam the hell out of it.
You know what? I believe that's a real address.
It is.
Well,
That's
you
so
might
great.
need a chiropractor after you sleep on a MyPillow,
Yeah, exactly.
and your spine becomes fused.
Yeah. So, what's so wrong with chiropractic, you ask? After all, here in the United States, chiropractors train for years in chiropractic schools, are licensed by the state, and are often covered by insurance. Hell, they have a doctor of chiropractic degree. They're doctors, Uncle Dan. Are you a doctor? No, I'm not. And all of this is true, which could easily lead someone to conclude that this is an established medical science. Indeed, it has been around for well over a century, so that's pretty established. It's just that almost everything that chiropractors do is neither medical nor science. Chiropractic was invented by a guy named Daniel David Palmer. DDP was born in 1845 in Ontario, Canada, but emigrated to the U.S. where he was when he was about 20. He had a varied job history in his younger years, which included owning a grocery store, school teaching, and this is true, beekeeping.
Oh, it's an honest.
there you
It's
go.
an honest trade.
Dude took a bit to find his true calling.
Sure.
Here's the thing. In the late 1800s, this was a time of huge innovations. Internal combustion engines, the telephone, the stapler, things that would go on to change the world. It seemed like every other week some amazing new discovery or invention was changing how people saw and interacted with our universe. That was certainly true in the field of medicine, where new theories about what caused ill health popped up all the time.
Yeah.
And because good science was still something that was kept for the educated elites, everybody else was left to decide for themselves what was real and what wasn't. And in the good old US of A, where everybody's equal, some Joe Schmo beekeeper is just as likely to get it right as some highfalutin doctor. Am I right?
Everything old is new again, Dan.
That's right. So this was a time of grand theories about health. Phrenology told us that you could know everything you needed to know about a person's mental traits by the bumps on their head. A tonic of cocaine and oil extracted from a reptile could cure any ailment and give you super strength to boot. That's
not true?
I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just saying good luck finding the stuff. One particularly strange theory gained some traction in the 1800s, which was that some diseases were caused by tiny, invisible life forms that invaded people's bodies. It was a wacky time.
Stupid.
Yeah. Well, old Dan Palmer wasn't falling for that germ theory mess. But he was very interested in some other promising fields of medicine, like magnetic therapies, which we definitely should cover sometime, and spiritualism. He was so interested, in fact, that he bought himself a bunch of magnets and started a magnetic healing practice. The story goes that one day in 1896, the janitor of the building where he had his little magnet practice, a fellow named Harvey Lillard, told Palmer about that one time when he felt something weird in his back and then lost most of his hearing. Palmer felt around on Lillard's back and finding a bump there that wasn't supposed to be, he theorized that Lillard's hearing loss was related to his back being out of whack and convinced Lillard to come into his office and started manipulating his spine. Boom! The man was cured and could hear again. Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing.
Aren't you inspired?
I'm inspired.
Great. Then there's no need to investigate further. Definitely don't refer to the completely different story that Lillard's daughter later said her dad recounted to her, where Palmer literally just slapped Lillard on the back after he told a joke, and Lillard could hear a little better.
Strange.
Still strange.
Yeah.
Still likely not true, or who knows what it was. Maybe it dislodged some wax. You never can tell. Whatever the real story was, this incident gave Palmer the idea for chiropractic, that all diseases, medical problems were caused by disruptions in the nervous system because people's spines were out of place. We did it, everybody! We figured it out! Hooray! Well, okay, to be fair, it's a little more complicated than that. Our bodies have, quote, an innate intelligence conferred upon them by the universal intelligence. Mm-hmm. And then the spine thing. That's basically it.
Right.
I would call my body many things after the past year, but intelligent is not one of them.
That's very, very true. Now, how did Palmer know how to do this? Where did this amazing idea come from? Well, according to him, and I really want you to hear this part of it, if you think that chiropractic is a real thing. Palmer quote, received chiropractic from the other world. That is a direct quote from him. Remember how I said he was into spiritualism? Well, apparently a spirit named Dr. James Atkinson told him all about how the body actually worked, and he would know because ghosts know shit. Unless you think he thought that he was just getting good science from the ghost. No, he did not think of himself as merely the leader of a scientific movement. I'll just let him speak for himself. This is in his own words. Quote, we must have a religious head, one who is the founder, as did Christ, Mohammed, Joseph Smith, Mrs. Eddy, Martin Luther, and others who have founded religions.
I'm sorry, who is Mrs. Eddy?
I think she founded the Christian Scientist.
Was she Gerald's mom? Like,
yeah.
I like to think just a lady down the street, and then Muhammad.
And Jesus.
Yeah. And
he goes
Joseph
on
Smith, suspect immediately if you're citing Joseph Smith as an authority in anything.
Right, yeah. Anyway, he went on to say, I am the fountainhead. I am the founder of chiropractic in its science, in its art, in its philosophy, and in its religious phase. So, yikes.
Yeah.
Anyway, Palmer took this spooky ghost medicine religion and ran with it. He honed and refined his back-cracking technique and began teaching it to others. And man, did it take off. It was a hit. People came to him for every kind of malady, from asthma to rheumatism to malaria and smallpox. And he did the same thing for all of them.
And cured them all the end.
Right, exactly. I mean, I think about it. This was the Victorian era. I suspect that just feeling the touch of another human being was probably super mind-blowing. So people were really impressed.
Probably.
In 1897, he founded the Palmer School and Cure in Davenport, Iowa, later renamed the Palmer College of Chiropractic, which is still to this day one of the top chiropractic schools in the world. One of his earliest students was his own son, B.J. Palmer, who, despite apparently having been alternately beaten and ignored by his dad all through his childhood, still took to the family quackery business quite well.
Was it beating, or was his dad giving him an adjustment?
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
The early adjustments were apparently done by belt.
I've seen some chiropractic, and it kind of looks like a beating to me.
Yeah, there you go. Eventually, somebody noticed that this Palmer fellow was, practicing medicine without a license, which was apparently a no-no even back then. So DD went to jail, and in his absence, BJ took up the mantle of HQIC, that's head quack in charge, and continued growing the business. When DD got out of jail, the relationship of father and son deteriorated, just like the chiros say that your back deteriorates. This got worse and worse until one fine Founders Day, and I swear this is true, when Daniel Palmer was marching in the parade, BJ fucking hit him with a car.
What?
So that happened.
On purpose?
But his hearing was restored.
Right? We don't know that it was on purpose. He was cleared by a court of any malfeasance. But Daddy Palmer did die a few months later, officially of typhoid fever, which apparently, when combined with automotive industries, cannot be cured by chiropractic after all. After that, BJ took over and turned chiropractic into Scientology. I swear to God, it's the same shit. He organized the practitioners so that they could protect each other. Anyone who accused them of being unscientific snake oil salesmen that they were would be instantly sued into oblivion. BJ even introduced the use of a completely useless electrical device called a neurocalometer, or neurocalometer, which he licensed to other chiropractors for outrageous sums of money. It did nothing.
What did it look like?
I don't know. I actually haven't seen an image of it, but all it did was sense heat a little bit.
Okay.
It was not useful in anything.
So it wasn't it wasn't even up to e-meter snuff.
Well, I mean, I think it's about on the equivalent thing about e-reader and e-meters. And lest you think I'm straining this Scientology comparison, get this. The e-meter that you're speaking of, that all the Scientologists love and revere so much, was invented by a chiropractor.
Are you serious?
That's right.
In the fine tradition of his trade.
Wow.
So there you go.
Was it invented for Scientology, or did it exist?
No, it was. He invented it, and then he Ron Hubbard saw it and thought, I think he actually invented it after having seen a lecture by Ron Hubbard, and somehow they got together and
two great tastes that go great together.
Right?
Yeah.
So that is the history, but what about now? Well, modern chiropractic has kind of divided itself into two warring factions. They are the straight chiros, who don't want to acknowledge that we've learned anything in the last century, and therefore stick to Palmer's teachings with a few nutball add-ons like applied kinesiology, where they determine what your body needs by having you hold out an arm and pressing down on it to see how strongly you can resist it, and then they have you hold a certain supplement or put it in your mouth, and they push down on your arm again, and if your arm goes down more easily, it means your muscles weakened, and that means that you need that supplement.
Yeah.
Or it means that they pushed harder. Difficult to say, really. So the other camp of chiropractic is actually interested in focusing on evidence-based science. They're called physical therapists. Ha! Just kidding. They still call themselves chiropractors, probably because they already paid a fuck ton of money for chiropractic school and don't want to go back to square one. But really, an actually evidence-based chiro is virtually indistinguishable from a PT.
Yeah. So I've had physical therapy. It was enormously, after a car wreck, it was enormously beneficial.
Yeah.
But my bones didn't get cracked.
No.
No.
The evidence-based guys move away from the cracking of the bones to some extent. We'll get to that. So here's the scoop. The back cracking thing does almost nothing. Backs do not go out of alignment except in the case of bad injury, and then you need an orthopedic surgeon, not a chiropractor. Backs are insanely tough, and you're not going to affect how the spine sits by pressing on it. The science is pretty clear on that. That said, modern medicine has had a very difficult time coming up with ways to help a hurt back. The best that they have is pretty much ibuprofen and targeted exercises. And in some studies, chiropractic is shown to do as well as that in fixing back problems. The trouble is that backs actually heal themselves, like really well. It can often take several weeks, but it generally happens. So if you have back pain for 3 weeks and then you go to a chiropractor, it might get you better really soon, but you probably would have gotten better in the same time frame without the chiro. You just wouldn't have paid out all that money. And there are some real problems with chiropractic. The non-evidence-based chiros make all sorts of really dangerous claims. They'll tell patients that they have just as much training as a medical doctor. They'll say that like your back has a curve, and if they don't fix it, you'll get problems down the line, which is not true. Then they'll say that you need to come in for like several times a week for months to fix it, which they cannot do. They take before and after x-rays to measure progress. They still claim that they can cure and prevent diseases. They tell people to stop taking doctor-prescribed medicine, and then they sell them expensive supplements instead. They tell parents that their newborn babies need spinal adjustments to deal with the trauma of childbirth. That is
that
fucking
tiny little
terrifying.
skeleton?
Yeah.
Ay, ay, ay.
And perhaps most disturbing of all, at this particular moment in history, they stick to Dirty Dan Palmer's claim that vaccines are worthless.
Oh, God.
It's a real problem. They are propagating this anti-vax narrative, not based on, the whole autism thing or whatever, but because of 100-plus-year-old idea of a guy who had no training in medicine.
And got his information from a ghost.
From a ghost.
Right.
It's fucking ghost medicine. And yeah, you really need to run fast.
So,
from that kind of shit.
how do you are there any numbers on which are, how many people in this practice are like the science-based pro-vaccine, pro-proper medicine, and how many are not?
I have not been
Percentages.
able to. I didn't find any of that.
And like as a person going in to meet a chiropractor, how do you know the difference? I guess you just have to ask, right?
Yeah, and I do have a bunch of questions that I think will be helpful for that. Because, to be fair, there is some evidence that spinal manipulation can help with lower back pain, sciatica, that sort of thing. So if you want to go to a chiro for that, go. But let's definitely get some questions out before you shell out your money. And I should note that I got these questions from one of the chiropractors who's an evidence-believing doctor of chiropractic. So he knows what his industry looks like. So these are some, I think, very sensible questions to ask before you go to the chiropractor. Ask them, first of all, if they treat anything other than musculoskeletal conditions. If they say yes, run the fuck away. Then ask whether when they use x-rays. The only time that they should be exposing anyone to radiation is if they suspect a fracture or some sort of life-threatening pathology like cancer. If they use them to track your progress or to look for subluxations of the spine, which is a big word in chiropractic, and they use it in a totally different way than the rest of medicine uses it, so that can be a big no-no, and run away if they're using x-rays excessively. Ask them how much they use what are called passive treatments versus coming up with exercises and stretches that the patient can do. Passive treatments are ones where the patient doesn't do anything, but the chiro works on them. So this includes spinal adjustments, ultrasound, scraping, which is where they scrape the skin to break up scar tissue and fascia. There is zero evidence that this works in humans, and a bunch of other stuff. An evidence-based chiropractor will say that any passive treatments that they use are secondary, and that the main course of treatment is active and works the patient quickly towards self-management. And that's a very key thing. Because literally a lot of chiropractors, their whole business is saying, you have to come back and come back and come back to me. We got to manage this. We got to maintain this. And it's just a money grab. That's all it is. And finally, ask if they have patients. So you should ask if they have patients come in frequently and for long periods. Literally, it's just that money grab that I'm talking about. A reputable, evidence-based chiropractor should only need to see you enough times to get a good, self-managed regimen of exercises and stretching going. Because they're really just PTs.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's interesting, Dan. I like this doesn't mean a thing is not a woo, but I have friends who I've known for years and years and years who are intelligent people, because there's a lot of like blue collar work in my industry, right? And a lot of really physical work that goes into making a movie, and a lot of these people I know swear by it, like they couldn't get through life without a chiropractor is how they feel. You know?
It's one of those things where, like I said, literally, so in cases of back pain, modern medicine, evidence-based medicine has not come up with much more than just take ibuprofen and do targeted exercises to help strengthen your back and activate it. Do those. They're literally like chiropractic can't do any better than that. It can sometimes have as good an effect as that, but exercise and ibuprofen costs a lot less than chiropractic.
What about the PT side of it though? Like the people who are actually practicing, trying to do.
Well, that's they may be able to help you come up with some really good exercises,
right?
And so it may be worth a visit or two.
They're probably the ones who prescribe the medication and help you figure out the regimen.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah. So a chiropractor, I don't think they can prescribe medication, but
I don't know.
they can help you come up with some good exercises, and then just take ibuprofen for the pain. And like I say, backs are really good at healing themselves.
Well, I wonder if because it is kind of a dramatic, you go to a chiropractor. I've never been to one.
I've never been.
I don't want to. Yeah, but they're quite
or any other kind of doctor for that matter.
Right.
You see them in TV and film quite often.
Yeah.
There's it's dramatic. They grab you and like, oh, my back hurts, and just stand over here, crack, crack, crack.
Right.
And I don't know how truthful that is in practice, if there's actually that much cracking, but it's dramatic, and maybe it has like getting your back popped feels good.
Yeah.
Getting stretched feels good.
Yeah, my husband has a very he sits at a desk, and he's a graphic designer, and he works a lot sitting in a certain position.
Right.
And every once in a while, his back is very stiff and kind of feels locked up, and he asked me to crack his back for him, the old kind of hug from behind and lift thing.
Right.
And it sounds like a box of kindling, right? It's just crickety crackety crack, and he gets relief from that. So is that?
So there's something there.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's why it has a following. Is that it feels dramatic. It's satisfying in the moment, which most doctor visits are not, because that's just the way the body is. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I wonder if that's part of why it's got a popular following.
Yeah, I probably. And the other, but man, oh man, if they're talking about like adjusting your spine, like actually moving your spine to a different place or whatever, the spine is such a rigid, it's a powerful, impressive group of muscles and bones. They're not doing shit about that. They're never going to be able to move your spine and adjust it so that it's in better alignment. That's just not how spines do.
Right. So there's a permanent change in your spine. It is what you're saying.
Right. It's literally they're never going to make that happen. So don't go to them if they say that they can do that. If they're telling you, my first encounter with a chiropractor was when I was a teenager and I was in the mall and a chiropractor was like, "Hey, you want a free alignment assessment or whatever?"
Hey, Dan, I don't think that was a chiropractor.
Oh. Okay,
Yeah,
now that explains a lot of things.
Yeah.
Step into my windowless van.
Right, exactly. But the snacks are really good.
Yeah.
But no, he had me he put me in front of this device that he pushed up and down some things, and then he had me step away, and he's like, "Look at how unaligned your spine is. You should come and see me for a free session." And because I was a curious kid, my friend and I went to see him for a free session, and he brought out a chart about how the human body works and blah, blah, blah. And it was not even related to anything that I had ever learned about the human body or medicine before. And I was like, what the fuck is this? He was just using words that weren't used in medicine and stuff. And I was like, it freaked me the fuck out. And I was like, okay, thanks, bye, and left. And it truly, I hate to say it because so many people, like you say, Uncle Mark, swear by it, say that it's the only thing that'll fix their pain or whatever. And unfortunately, the science doesn't bear that out.
Well, we had a similar discussion about acupuncture, where the science is just not conclusive, it seems, on it.
Well, the science is conclusive that it doesn't.
It doesn't do what it says it does. Yeah,
it doesn't beat out placebo.
Yeah.
You may feel better. You may actually feel less pain.
Yeah,
but it doesn't actually beat out a clearly bogus, made up alternate therapy. So. There you go. Again, right to Mike Lindell if you're mad about it.
Well, I suspect we're going to hear from all kinds of people, because I'll bet there are plenty of rational people that like my friends that in the industry who swear by it. So it'd be interesting to hear what people think.
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
All right. So with that,
here we go.
let's crack on.
Hit send.